The morning sky over Seoul turned purple when the alien ships arrived. Dae-ho Kim stood on the military base rooftop, watching 3 massive vessels hover silently above the city. After 30 years as a soldier, he had seen many strange things, but never anything like this. "Sir, they're sending a message," called Soo-jin Park from behind him. She ran up the stairs, holding a tablet in her shaking hands. Soo-jin worked as Earth's top scientist for studying alien life, though until today, she had never actually seen any aliens. Dae-ho took the tablet and read the message. The words appeared in perfect Korean, then English, then dozens of other languages. "We are the Velari Empire. We come in peace. We wish to meet with your leaders." 3 hours later, Dae-ho sat in a conference room filled with Earth's most important people. Presidents, generals, and scientists all stared at the large screen showing the alien ship. Soo-jin sat next to him, taking notes on everything. "They want to land one small ship," said the Earth president. "Should we let them?" "We don't have much choice," Dae-ho replied. "Their technology is clearly better than ours. If they wanted to hurt us, they could have done it already." The alien ship landed in a field outside the city. It was beautiful, made of silver metal that seemed to change color in the light. The door opened with a soft hiss, and 2 figures stepped out. They looked almost human, but taller and thinner. Their skin had a blue tint, and their eyes were larger than human eyes. They wore simple white robes that seemed to glow softly. The first alien raised his hand in what seemed like a greeting. "I am Commander Veltar," he said in perfect Korean. "This is High Scholar Morden. We come from the Velari Empire." Soo-jin stepped forward. As the alien expert, she had been chosen to speak first. "Welcome to Earth. I am Soo-jin Park. This is Commander Dae-ho Kim. We are honored to meet you." Veltar smiled. "We have watched your species for some time. You show great promise as warriors." "Warriors?" Dae-ho asked. He didn't like where this was going. Morden spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and calm. "For 3,000 years, the Velari Empire has kept peace in this part of the galaxy. We have done this through strength, but also through wisdom. We are looking for allies who can help us continue this peace." "What kind of help?" Soo-jin asked. "We wish to teach. You are combat arts," Veltar explained. "In return, Earth would join our empire as a protected world. You would have our technology, our knowledge, and our protection." Dae-ho felt suspicious. "Why would you want to teach us how to fight? What do you get out of it?" Morden's eyes seemed sad. "We have had peace for too long. Our people have become soft. Our ancient fighting ways are being forgotten. By teaching you, we hope to remember what we once were." "Show us," Soo-jin said quietly. The 2 aliens looked at each other, then nodded. They walked to an open area of the field. Morden closed his eyes and held out his hands. Suddenly, blue light began to glow around his fingers. The light grew brighter and formed into a ball of energy. Veltar moved like lightning. He jumped high into the air, spinning as he moved. When he landed, he was behind Morden, but Morden was ready. Without turning around, he threw the ball of energy over his shoulder. Veltar caught it and threw it back. For the next 5 minutes, the 2 aliens moved like dancers, but deadly ones. They threw energy at each other, jumped impossible heights, and moved faster than human eyes could follow. When they stopped, they weren't even breathing hard. "This is what we can teach you," Morden said. Dae-ho's mouth was open. He had never seen anything like it. "How is that possible?" "The combat arts use the mind to control the body," Veltar explained. "They also use the energy that flows through all living things. With training, anyone can learn." "Anyone?" Soo-jin asked. "We believe so. Your species shows unusual mental flexibility. You might learn even faster than we did." Over the next week, Earth's leaders discussed the alien offer. Some were excited about the new technology and protection. Others worried about losing Earth's independence. Dae-ho found himself somewhere in between. "What do you think?" Soo-jin asked him as they walked through the military base. "I think they're telling the truth about wanting to teach us," Dae-ho said. "But I also think they're not telling us everything. Why choose us? There must be other species in the galaxy." Before Soo-jin could answer, a young pilot ran up to them. "Commander Kim, the aliens want to start training. They've asked for 20 volunteers." The pilot was Tae-min Lee, one of the best young fighters on the base. He was only 25, but he had already proven himself in combat simulations that most soldiers couldn't handle. "Are you volunteering?" Dae-ho asked. "Yes, sir," Tae-min said with excitement. This could change everything for humanity. Dae-ho looked at the young man's eager face. He remembered being that young and confident. It could also be dangerous. "We don't know what these combat arts might do to human bodies or minds." "That's a risk I'm willing to take," Tae-min replied. 3 days later, 20 human volunteers stood in a training facility that the Valari had built overnight. The building seemed to be made of the same changing metal as their ship. Inside, the walls glowed with soft light, and the floor felt strange under their feet. Morden stood before the humans. "Today you begin a journey that will change you forever. The combat arts are not just about fighting. They are about understanding yourself and the energy that connects all things." He gestured, and each human felt a strange tingling sensation. "Close your eyes. Feel the energy moving through your body. Don't try to control it yet. Just feel it." Tae-min closed his eyes and concentrated. At first, he felt nothing unusual. Then, slowly, he began to sense something. It was like a warm current flowing through his arms and legs. "Good," Morden said softly. "Now try to move that energy to your hands." Tae-min focused harder. The warm feeling moved slowly toward his fingers. Suddenly, he felt a surge of power. His eyes snapped open just as blue light exploded from his hands. The light hit Veltar, who had been standing nearby. The alien commander flew backward and crashed into the wall. For a moment, everyone stood frozen. Then Veltar got up, brushing dust from his robes. He was smiling widely. "Fascinating," he said. "That should not have been possible on your first try." Morden walked over to Tae-min, who looked terrified. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ... "You have nothing to apologize for," Morden said, studying Tae-min with new interest. "You have just shown us that humans and Valari may be more different than we thought." As the first training session ended, Dae-ho watched the volunteers file out. Most looked excited, but a few seemed confused or worried. Tae-min was in the excited group, talking rapidly with the other volunteers about what they had felt. Soo-jin approached Dae-ho. "What do you think just happened?" "I think," Dae-ho said slowly, "that the Valari just learned something about humans that they weren't expecting. The question is whether that's good or bad for us." Outside, the alien ships continued to hover over Earth, and humanity took its first steps into a larger, more dangerous galaxy. 2 weeks after the first training session, Hai-Won Choi was very worried. As the military's top doctor, she had been studying the 20 human volunteers every day. What she found in their medical tests scared her. Their brain activity has increased by 40%, she told Dae-ho as they looked at brain scans on her computer. Their muscle density is growing. Even their reflexes are getting faster. This is happening too quickly to be natural. Dae-ho studied the colorful images on the screen. "Are they in danger?" "I don't know," Hai-Won admitted. "I've never seen changes like this. It's like their bodies are rebuilding themselves." In the training facility, The human students were learning things that amazed even their Velari teachers. Jin Woo Nam, a former martial arts champion, could now maintain his energy focus for over an hour. The Velari instructors said that most of their people could only do it for 20 minutes. "How do you do it?" asked Veltar as he watched Jin Woo practice. Blue energy swirled around the human's hands like water. "I don't think about it too much," Jin Woo replied. "In my old martial arts training, we learned to let the body remember the movements. I try to let my mind rest while my body works." Veltar looked confused. "But the combat arts require constant mental control. You must think about every movement of energy." "Maybe for Velari," Jin Woo said with a smile, "but humans might work differently." Nearby, Tae Min was practicing with another student. They were trying to copy a Velari technique where two fighters shared energy between them. The aliens had explained that it was very difficult and took years to master. Tae Min and his partner, a young woman named Bu Ora, held hands and closed their eyes. They tried to feel each other's energy. At first, nothing happened. Then suddenly, both of them began to glow with the same blue light. "Impossible," whispered Morden, who was watching. "They have been training for only 2 weeks." But something even stranger happened next. As Tae Min and Biora shared energy, other students nearby began to glow too. Soon, all 20 humans were connected by streams of blue light. Even though most of them weren't even trying to use the technique, the light grew brighter and brighter until the whole room was filled with it. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. All 20 humans collapsed to the floor, breathing hard but smiling. "What just happened?" gasped Tae-Min. More single quotes. Den and Veltar looked at each other with wide eyes. "You achieved group synchronization," Morden said slowly. "Our legends speak of this technique, but no Velari has ever been able to do it. We always believed it was just a story." In her laboratory, Su Jing was documenting everything she could about the human changes. She had filled dozens of notebooks with observations about how the students were learning faster than expected. "The Velari learn their combat arts through memorization and repetition," she wrote. "But humans seem to learn through experimentation and feeling. They change the techniques without even realizing it." Meanwhile, Kang Min Co was in the engineering section, taking apart Velari training equipment. As Earth's best engineer, he wanted to understand how the alien technology worked. "The energy comes from some kind of field generator," he told his assistant as he studied a small device. "But the way it focuses the energy is completely different from anything we've built." He made a small adjustment to the device and turned it on. Instead of the usual steady blue light, it produced a light that changed colors and patterns. "Sir," his assistant said nervously, "should you be changing their equipment?" "Probably not," Kang Min admitted, "but I think I can make it work better for humans." When Veltar found out about Kang Min's modifications, he was not happy. "You cannot change sacred training equipment," he said angrily. "But it works better this way," Kang Min explained. "Human brains process energy differently than Velari brains. We need different tools." "These techniques are 3,000 years old," Veltar said. "They have been perfected over centuries." Tae Min, who had been listening, spoke up. "With respect, Commander, maybe they were perfected for Velari, but we're not Velari." This statement seemed to shock Veltar into silence. As weeks passed, news of the human training program spread through the Velari Empire. Some aliens were excited by the reports of human progress. Others were worried or angry. Young Su Bei was one of the excited ones. He was a young Velari who had always been curious about other species. When he heard about the humans who were learning combat arts in new ways, he asked permission to come to Earth. "I want to study how they do it," he told the Velari Council. "If humans can learn our arts differently, Maybe we can learn from them too. The council was not sure about this idea, but they allowed Young Su to travel to Earth as a cultural exchange student. When Young Su arrived at the training facility, he was amazed by what he saw. The human students were practicing techniques that looked familiar but felt completely different from traditional Velari methods. They move like water, he told Morden. Velari combat is like stone, strong and unchanging. But human combat flows and adapts. Mira Yoon, a psychologist who had been studying the mental effects of the training, agreed with Young Su's observation. The students are becoming more creative, she told Dae-ho, but they're also becoming more cooperative. The combat arts aren't just changing their bodies, they're changing how they think. Not all the news from the Velari Empire was good. Reports reached Earth that a powerful admiral named Zevron was gathering support among traditional Velari. He believed that teaching combat arts to aliens was dangerous and wrong. These arts are sacred to our people, Zevron told his followers. They should not be given to primitives who will corrupt and destroy them. Dae-ho learned about Admiral Zevron from Veltar, who is becoming more worried each day. He has many ships and many followers, Veltar explained. If he decides to stop the training program, he might try to take the students by force. Let him try, said Taemin, who had overheard the conversation. We're not helpless anymore. But Dae-ho was more cautious. How many ships does this admiral have? More than Earth could fight, Veltar admitted. The situation became more tense when Admiral Zevron sent his own message to Earth. It appeared on every screen and communication device on the planet at the same time. Humans of Earth, the message said, you are being deceived. The combat arts you are learning were not meant for your species. You are changing them into something unnatural and dangerous. Stop this training immediately or face the consequences. The message caused panic around the world. Many people demanded that the training program be ended immediately. Others argued that Earth should not give in to alien threats. In the training facility, the human students gathered to discuss what they should do. Most of them wanted to continue training, but they were scared of what might happen. Maybe we should. Stop, said one student. We don't want to start a war. But we've learned so much, argued Baora. And we're just getting started. I feel like we could discover things that even the Velari don't know. Taemin stood up to address the group. I think we have to make a choice. We can go back to being the same humans we were before, or we can keep moving forward into something new. But whatever we choose, we should choose it together. The students talked for hours. In the end, they decided to continue their training, but with one condition. They wanted to learn everything they could as quickly as possible, in case Admiral Zevron tried to stop them. If we're going to do this, Taemin said, we need to be ready for anything. Morden, who had been listening to the human discussion, felt something he had never felt before. The human's determination reminded him of ancient Velari legends about the first warriors who had developed the combat arts. Perhaps, he said quietly to Veltar, the humans are not corrupting our traditions. Perhaps they are showing us what our traditions were meant to become. That night, as Earth's 20 combat students practiced under the stars, none of them knew that they were about to become the most important people in the galaxy. Admiral Zevron's fleet was already moving toward Earth, but so were other Velari. Ships filled with young aliens who wanted to learn from the humans. The age of human-taught combat arts was about to begin, whether the galaxy was ready for it or not. The first Velari student arrived on a small, unmarked ship 3 days before Admiral Zevron's deadline. Her name was Hana, and she was barely older than Taemin. She had heard stories about the human training methods and had traveled across the galaxy without permission to see them for herself. I want to learn, she told Morden simply. My combat skills have not improved in 2 years. The old ways are not working for me. Morden was surprised, but agreed to let her observe. What happened next shocked everyone in the training facility. Tae-min was teaching a group of human students a modified energy technique. Instead of following the traditional Velari method of rigid control, he encouraged the students to let the energy flow naturally while guiding it gently. Don't force it, he told them. Think of it like steering a river, not building a dam. Hana watched for an hour, then asked if she could try. When she used Tae-min's method, her energy output increased by 50% immediately. This is impossible, she whispered, staring at the bright light surrounding her hands. I have been training for 10 years and never achieved this level. Word of Hana's success spread quickly through the Velari communication networks. Within a week, 12 more young Velari had arrived on Earth without official permission. They all wanted to learn from the humans. Veltar was panic-stricken. Admiral Zevran will use this as proof that the humans are corrupting our people, he told Daeho. He will say that Earth is stealing our young warriors. But Daeho was more interested in what was happening in the training sessions. The human and Velari students were learning from each other in ways that neither species had expected. Jinwoo discovered that Velari meditation techniques helped him focus his energy even better. Meanwhile, a young Velari named Koru learned human improvisation methods that made his combat style completely unpredictable. We are becoming something new, Miura observed as she watched mixed groups of humans and Velari practice together. Neither fully human nor fully Velari in their approach. Tae-min found himself in an unexpected position. The Velari students were calling him Teacher Tae-min and asking him to show them techniques that he was still learning himself. I don't know enough to be a teacher, he told Morden privately. Knowledge is not the only qualification for teaching, Morden replied. You have something more important, the ability to help others discover what they can do. This conversation was interrupted by an urgent alarm. Su Jin rushed into the facility with terrible news. Admiral Zevron's fleet has arrived, she announced. 100 ships. They're demanding that all Velari citizens return to their vessels immediately. The young Velari students looked terrified. Going back to Zevron meant facing charges of treason for learning from humans. We won't let them take you, Tae-min said firmly. You cannot fight 100 ships, Hana said sadly. Earth's military is not strong enough. Maybe Earth's military isn't, said Jinwoo with a strange smile. But what about Earth's combat artists? Daeho was not happy with this suggestion. You've been training for only 2 months. You're not ready for real combat. With respect, Commander, Tae-min replied. No one knows what we're ready for. We've been doing things that were supposed to be impossible since day one. Admiral Zevron's message to Earth was simple and threatening. Return our citizens and end this mockery of sacred traditions, or we will take them by force. The Earth. President called an emergency meeting with Daeho, Su Jin, and the alien teachers. Can we negotiate with this admiral? The president asked. Veltar shook his head. Zevron believes that any change to traditional combat arts is evil. He will not listen to reason. Then we fight, said Daeho grimly. With what? Asked the president. Our best ships are no match for Velari technology. It was Morden who suggested the solution that changed everything. What if we challenge them to formal combat trials? It is an ancient Velari tradition. If the admiral accepts, he must honor the results. What kind of trials? Su Jin asked. Single combat between champions, Morden explained. If the human champions win, Zevron must leave Earth alone. If they lose. He didn't finish the sentence. Kong-min had been quiet during the meeting, but now he spoke up. What if we don't fight the traditional way? Everyone looked at him. What do you mean? Asked Daeho. Space combat, Kong-min said. I've been studying Velari ship technology. I think I can modify our fighters to use the combat arts. Ships can't use combat arts, Veltar protested. The arts require living energy. Human living energy, Kangmin corrected. What if we put human combat artists in modified ships? They could project their energy through the ship's systems. It was a crazy idea, but crazy ideas had been working for humans since the training began. Te-Min volunteered immediately to be the first test pilot. If this works, we might be able to even the odds. The modification process took 2 days. Kangmin worked without sleep, installing energy channeling systems into Earth's fastest fighter ship. The ship looked the same on the outside, but inside, it was filled with crystal conduits that could focus and amplify human energy. When Te-Min climbed into the pilot seat for the first test, he felt the ship's systems connecting with his nervous system. It was like putting on clothes that were made perfectly for his body. Try projecting energy through the weapon systems, Kangmin instructed over the radio. Te-Min closed his eyes and let his energy flow into the ship. Suddenly, the fighter blazed with blue light. When he fired the weapons, they shot beams of pure energy that were 10 times more powerful than normal. It works, he reported, amazement in his voice. The ship feels like an extension of my body. Within hours, news of the human challenge reached Admiral Zevron. He was suspicious, but agreed to the combat trials. His pride would not let him refuse a formal challenge, especially from a species he considered primitive. 3 trials, his message stated: ground combat, space combat, and group tactics. If the humans win 2 of 3, I will withdraw. If they lose, they will surrender all combat students and end their training program forever. The trials were set for the next day. Earth's best pilots worked through the night to prepare 3 modified fighters. Meanwhile, the human combat students practiced with their Velari friends, trying to perfect techniques they had never used in real combat. Remember, Te-Min told the other pilots, we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for the right to keep learning and growing. Jin Wu, who had been selected for the ground combat trial, was nervous but determined. What if the traditional techniques work better in real fights? Ben, we learned that too, Te-Min replied. But I don't think they will. Zevron's people have been using the same methods for centuries. They won't expect what we can do. As the sun rose on the day of the trials, ships from across the galaxy gathered to watch. Word had spread through the Velari Empire that humans were going to challenge ancient traditions. Some aliens came hoping to see the humans defeated. Others came hoping to see something new. Young Su stood with the human and Velari students who had been training together. Whatever happens today, he said, you have already changed how the galaxy thinks about combat and learning. Admiral Zevron's flagship was a massive vessel that had won 100 battles. As it positioned itself for the trials, it sent a final message to Earth. Prepare to learn the price of arrogance, the message said. But in the training facility, surrounded by friends from 2 different worlds, Te-Min was smiling. No, he said quietly. Today, the galaxy learns what happens when you teach humans to fight. The trials that would determine the future of human-alien relations were about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same. The first trial was ground combat. Jing Wu faced a Velari champion named Torven, who had won every formal combat trial for the past 20 years. The fight took place on a floating platform above Earth, broadcast to billions of viewers across the galaxy. Torven moved exactly as the ancient texts taught, precise, powerful, and predictable. His energy attacks came in perfect patterns that had been used for centuries. Jin Wu watched and learned for the first few minutes, taking several hits but studying his opponent's rhythm. Then Jin Wu began to adapt. Instead of blocking Torven energy attacks, he absorbed them and redirected them back. Instead of attacking where Torvin expected, he struck from impossible angles. Within 10 minutes, the ancient champion was confused and breathing hard. "This is not proper combat," Torvin shouted as Jinwoo's energy wrapped around him like a net. "No," Jinwoo agreed calmly. "It's better." The first trial went to Earth. Admiral Zevron was furious but not surprised. "The human got lucky," he announced. "Space combat will show their true weakness." For the space combat trial, Feynman faced 3 Velari fighters in his modified ship. The alien ships were faster and more heavily armed, but they fought using traditional Velari space tactics, formations and patterns that had not changed in centuries. Feynman's ship moved like no spacecraft anyone had ever seen. It twisted and flowed through space as if it was alive. When the Velari ships fired energy weapons at him, his ship's modified systems turned their own attacks back at them. But the real surprise came when Feynman started projecting energy directly. From his ship, beams of blue light reached out like arms, grabbing the Velari fighters and pulling them off course. Within minutes, all 3 enemy ships were disabled. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Zevron. "Ships cannot use combat arts." "Human ships can," Veltar replied with obvious pride. Earth had won 2 trials and the contest, but Admiral Zevron demanded the 3rd trial anyway. "Group tactics," he declared. "My best squadron against your best team." This was when everything went wrong. As the ships were positioning for the 3rd trial, space around Earth suddenly filled with different vessels. These ships were black and covered with sharp spikes. They moved aggressively toward both the human and Velari fleets. "Krextari," shouted Veltar in alarm. "Battle stations." Donghayan Ko had been monitoring alien communications from Earth's defense center. As a former detective, he was good at noticing patterns that others missed. "Commander Kim," he called to Daeho urgently. "These Krextari have been watching us. They knew exactly when our defenses would be focused on the trials." The Krextari were the Velari Empire's oldest enemies. They had been waiting for a chance to strike at Velari forces while they were distracted. 100 Krextari warships had appeared from nowhere, and they were attacking both Earth and the Velari fleet. "All trials are ended," Admiral Zevron announced. "Velari ships formed defensive formations." But the Krextari had studied Velari tactics for centuries. Their ships moved in patterns designed to counter every traditional Velari formation. The Empire's forces, despite their advanced technology, were being pushed back. "They're going to break through to Earth," Daeho realized with horror. That was when Feynman made a decision that changed galactic warfare forever. "All human combat artists to modified fighters," he ordered over the communication system. "We're going to teach them something new." "You can't fight a Krextari fleet," protested Yoonji Lim, Earth's diplomatic representative. "This isn't your war." "It is now," Feynman replied as he launched his fighter. What happened next had never been seen before in space combat. Instead of following formation patterns, the human fighters moved as individuals, each pilot using their combat training to guide their ship like an extension of their own body. When Jinwoo's fighter was surrounded by 3 Krextari ships, he didn't retreat or call for help. Instead, he used his ship's energy systems to create a barrier that absorbed the enemy fire and redirected it at other targets. Biora's fighter seemed to dance between enemy ships, never where they expected her to be. Her ship projected energy tentacles that reached out and disabled enemy weapons without destroying the ships themselves. But the most amazing thing happened when the human fighters began to work together. Without any planned coordination, they started sharing energy between ships, just like they had learned to do in training. Streams of blue light connected the human fighters as they moved through space. Their combined energy allowed them to project shields around damaged Velari ships and create weapons powerful enough to disable entire squadrons of enemy vessels. War Master Gorthek, the leader of the Krextari fleet, watched in confusion as his forces were systematically defeated by tactics he had never seen before. "What are these humans doing?" he demanded. "Ships cannot share energy." "Human ships can," his tactical officer replied nervously. "And they're teaching the Velari too." Do it too. This was true. Velari pilots, seeing what the humans were accomplishing, began trying to copy their techniques. Young Velari like Hana, who had trained with humans, found they could modify their ship systems to channel energy like the humans did. Within hours, half the Velari fleet was fighting with human-influenced tactics. The Krextari, who had prepared for centuries to fight traditional Velari methods, found themselves completely outmatched. "We're not just winning," Dong Haiyan observed from his monitoring station. "We're teaching them a whole new way to fight while we fight." Admiral Zevron's flagship had been badly damaged in the battle, but he was still broadcasting orders. "All Velari ships maintain formation. Do not copy the human tactics." But his own pilots were ignoring him. When they saw that human methods worked better, they switched to the new techniques without hesitation. Young Su, who was serving as a communications officer on Zevron's ship, finally spoke up. "Admiral, the humans aren't corrupting our traditions. They're helping us remember what combat is really about, protecting others and adapting to survive." The battle ended when Gorthek's flagship tried to ram Taemin's fighter in a final, desperate attack. Taemin didn't try to dodge or destroy the enemy ship. Instead, he used his energy systems to grab the massive warship and stop it completely. "Surrender," Taemin broadcast to the Krextari fleet. "Your war is over." Gorthek, trapped in his motionless ship, had no choice but to agree. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Zevron's ship limped back to the main fleet. The admiral himself was strangely quiet as he surveyed the damage and the victory. Morden's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, the humans have proven something important today. They didn't just fight well. They taught others to fight better while in the middle of battle." Zevron looked around at his bridge crew. Half of them were young Velari who had been quietly studying human combat methods during the battle. His own tactical officer had saved the ship by using a human-style energy redirection technique. "Perhaps," the admiral said slowly, "I have been wrong about the humans." On Earth, the combat students gathered in their training facility, exhausted but victorious. They had not only won the trials, but had also defended their world and taught their former enemies new ways to fight. "What happens now?" asked one of the students. Tae-Min looked around at his friends, human and Velari alike. "Now we keep learning, and we teach anyone else who wants to learn." Outside, the combined human and Velari fleets were already working together to secure the captured Krextari ships. But more importantly, they were sharing knowledge and techniques that would change how the entire galaxy thought about combat and cooperation. The age of traditional warfare was ending. The age of adaptive, collaborative combat was just beginning. 5 years after the battle that changed everything, Taemin stood in front of a class unlike any in galactic history. 43 students sat before him, humans, Velari, Krextari, and 8 other species that had joined the new alliance. The classroom was built on a space station orbiting Earth. The station had been designed by teams from 12 different worlds, using the best ideas from each species. It was called the Galactic Combat Academy, but everyone just called it the school. "Today we will practice adaptive group tactics," Tae-Min announced to his mixed class. "Remember, the goal is not to defeat your opponent. The goal is to find new ways to work together." In the front row sat Kara, a young Krextari who had volunteered to study human methods after her people's defeat. Next to her was Hana, the first Velari to learn from humans, who was now a teacher herself. Behind them sat humans, aliens, and several beings from species that Earth had never encountered before the Academy was built. Te-Min was only 30 years old, but he was already considered one of the galaxy's greatest combat instructors. Not because he was the strongest fighter, but because he could help anyone discover new abilities they didn't know they had. "Teacher Te-Min," Kara asked, raising her hand, "my people were always taught that combat is about dominance. How do we fight without trying to dominate?" It was a good question. The Krextari had built their entire culture around the idea that the strongest should rule. Learning to fight cooperatively was difficult for them. "Think of it like this," Te-Min replied. "When you dominate someone, you only get to use your own strength. But when you work with them, you get to use their strength too, which makes you more powerful." Kara considered this. Working together? Try it and see. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Dai-Ho was meeting with representatives from across the galaxy. He was now the director of the Academy, responsible for managing the most important educational institution in known space. "The Zephyrian Republic wants to send 50 students," reported Sujin, who had become the Academy's head of research. "And the Crystalline Collective is asking if we can develop combat arts that work with their silicon-based biology." "Can we?" Dai-Ho asked. "Kang Min thinks so," Sujin replied. "He's been working with some of their engineers. Apparently, silicon beings can store and channel energy in ways that carbon-based life forms never imagined." Kang Min had become the Academy's chief technology officer. His workshop was filled with devices that combined technology from dozens of worlds with human innovation. He had recently created training equipment that could adapt to any species' biology and energy patterns. "Every species teaches us something new," he told his team of alien and human engineers. "The crystalline beings showed us how to store energy in solid matrices. The gas-formed nebulans taught us how to project energy across vast distances. And the humans ... double quotes, he smiled. Humans taught everyone how to improvise." In the medical section, Hai-1 was documenting changes that were happening across the galaxy. The combat arts weren't just teaching people to fight better. They were making entire species more adaptable and cooperative. "Aggression levels have dropped by 60% on worlds where our graduates return to teach," she reported to the Academy Council. At the same time, problem-solving abilities and cross-species communication have improved dramatically. The council included representatives from 15 different worlds. Admiral Zevron was among them, now serving as the Academy's military advisor. The former opponent of human training had become one of its strongest supporters. "The humans were right from the beginning," he admitted during the meeting. "Traditional combat taught us to be strong, but adaptive combat teaches us to be wise." Mira, now the Academy's director of psychological studies, had been tracking these changes across thousands of students. "The combat arts are evolving," she explained. "Every species that learns them adds something new. We're not teaching ancient Velari techniques anymore. We're creating something that belongs to everyone." This was true. The fighting styles taught at the Academy combined elements from every member species. Students learned Velari energy control, human adaptability, Krextari tactical analysis, crystalline energy storage, and dozens of other techniques. But the most important lesson was one that Te-Min had discovered during his first training session. When you teach someone else, you learn more than they do. The best way to master any technique, he told his students, is to teach it to someone who learns differently than you do. This philosophy had spread throughout the galaxy. Academy graduates didn't just return to their home worlds as better fighters. They returned as teachers who could help their own people grow and adapt. Jin-Wu had established the first regional academy on a Valari world, where he taught traditional Valari techniques modified with human principles. His students included former soldiers who had thought they were too old to learn new methods. Age doesn't matter, Jin Wu told them. What matters is willingness to try something different. Young Su had created a traveling school that visited worlds too remote to send students to the main academy. His ship was equipped with Kang Min's adaptive training equipment and carried instructors from 6 different species. Every world has something to teach, Young Su explained to new students. Our job is to help you discover what that is. But perhaps the most remarkable graduate was Gorthek, the former Krextari War Master. After spending 2 years as a student at the academy, he had returned to his people as a completely different leader. I once believed that conquest was the only path to strength, he told the Academy Council during a visit. Now I know that teaching is the ultimate conquest, not of others, but of ignorance itself. On the 5th anniversary of the Academy, representatives from over 100 worlds gathered for a celebration. The ceremony took place in the main training hall, where students from dozens of species demonstrated techniques that had never existed before the human Valari. Partnership began. Morbin, now elderly, but still teaching, spoke to the assembled crowd. 5 years ago, we Valari thought we were sharing our ancient wisdom with primitive humans. We were wrong. We were not teachers sharing with students. We were students meeting other students. Daiho stepped forward to address the gathering. When the Valari first offered to teach us their combat arts, I was suspicious of their motives. I thought they might be trying to control us. I was wrong too. They were offering us the chance to grow together. But it was Taemin who spoke the words that would be remembered across the galaxy. Combat arts are not about fighting, he said. They are about connection. When we learn to fight together, we learn to live together. When we teach others to be strong, we become stronger ourselves. As the ceremony ended, students and teachers from across the galaxy mingled together, sharing techniques and stories. Humans taught aliens, aliens taught humans, and everyone learned something new. In one corner, a group of young beings from 6 different worlds were working together to develop a new energy-sharing technique. In another, elderly masters from traditional combat schools were learning adaptive methods from students young enough to be their grandchildren. Hana approached Taemin as the celebration continued around them. Do you ever think about what would have happened if the Valari had never come to Earth? Taemin considered the question. Sometimes. But then I think about all the students here tonight, and I realize that this was always going to happen. Maybe not exactly this way, but somehow. The galaxy was ready to learn how to work together. We just helped it figure out how. Looking around at the celebration, Taemin saw the future of galactic civilization. It wasn't based on the dominance of any single species or the preservation of ancient traditions. It was based on the simple idea that everyone had something to teach and something to learn. The combat arts that had begun as alien techniques taught to humans had become something entirely new, a way for all intelligent life to grow stronger together. And as new species continued to discover the academy and add their own knowledge to the growing collection of techniques, that strength would only continue to grow. The age of isolated worlds and species was ending. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, one student and one teacher at a time.